Mr. Chair, I have a couple of comments. I think that maybe we would, given the lateness of the hour, wait until your continuation and further comments and questions from the Planning Board. I do want to point out a couple of things about the zoning. In particular, I think the use clusters, I think there was a misunderstanding maybe because it's a new concept. The City Council would approve a set of uses as part of the master plan, and then further, more specifically, as part of the special permit process. The use clusters don't come into effect until after that initial approval is taken place. So it's not that something would be approved and you could end up building for something else without approval of the council. I wanted to point that out. Also, I do believe that there were some comments on the deed restriction that I didn't make mention of when we first did our presentation concerning essentially the notice to anybody who bought or lived in residential units on this site. This has worked in another project in the city successfully that Mr. Bell has built, and he did that in response to the neighborhood there as well. They can be enforceable, and they can become part of a deed restriction, the notice of where one lives and what is in the surrounding area. I think those are two of the biggest things. I think there's a lot of detail that I'm not going to go into, and certainly this is an issue about zoning and the applicability in the particular area and the overlay uses as opposed to personal interests. And so I think that if we could focus on that, that would be great. But we'd like to wait and see what the planning board has at a later time.
Very good. To the podium, Mike, if you would.
If I could just say two issues, one relating to use, and that is that there has been no water access to this property in the history of this property. When it was first built as a light bulb factory in 1915, it was a light bulb factory for 5 years. It became the place where Clarence BirdsEye developed frozen food. It's accessible only by truck. When we went across the street after acquiring the property to speak with Lenny Paco, the president and owner of Ocean Crest Neptune, and offered him the opportunity to rent or buy any portion of the BirdsEye facility, that we would work with Ocean Crest Neptune from day one. He explained to me that their fresh fish model required access as they have on the opposite side of the street, and that he anticipated that within the next year or two or three that adjacent properties to his on the water side would be available, and that that's where they would put their money. And we worked arduously with each neighbor across the street to request if they had any interest on a rental or acquisition of any part of our property as we develop the designs and concepts, because we feel strongly committed that if they have an interest, we are happy to work with them. Put up. And the deal is that we've worked for 1.5 years to facilitate a communication process, and we will continue to do that. And the reality is that the side of Commercial Street that we're on is technically landlocked, or if you will, beach-locked, landlocked, and it's an incredible opportunity linked and directly connected to downtown. And I might say that the real estate taxes on BirdsEye in its obsolete form at present represent $20,000 a year in taxes. As of this January, those taxes will probably drop by 50% because Allied Cold Freezer Company went out of business. When we bought it, they were paying $15,000 a month rent. That was what we bought. They went bankrupt. The reality is that we see this property to be able to produce for the city of Gloucester somewhere between $200,000 and $400,000 a year, based on our experience from Gloucester Mill. Gloucester Mill, which by the way is an 88-foot tall building built in 1907 that we renovated in 1988. Frankie Davis Building was 90 feet tall on the harbor on Rogers Street. This City Hall tower is 150 feet. There's an opportunity, and I'm concluding, thank you very much, that what we did in creating this zoning process was we said, here's an open checkbook to the city of Gloucester. It appears to me that our schools are struggling, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We believe that this property can produce a significant resource of annual income in the form of taxes and employment, and the creativity necessary to think beyond the obsolete, dysfunctional box which has not employed more than 5 people in the last 12 years is now. So we're here to work with you. We appreciate your time and energy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.